allies prompts Canadian retaliation. The trade war launched by Trump is flaring up. President Trump has declared an economic emergency to impose a 10% tariff on all imports from China and 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. This has sparked a major trade war. Canada is the largest export market for 36 states, while Mexico is the United States' largest trading partner. Canada and Mexico decided to impose tariffs, despite Trump's threats to increase tariffs if retaliatory duties were imposed on American goods. The United States announced that on February 1, 2025, it will impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods and a 10% tariff on energy exports from Canada to the United States. Moreover, these tariffs will be effective as of February 4, 2025. In response, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the previous day that Canada would retaliate against President Donald Trump's new tariffs by imposing a 25% tariff on a range of United States imports, warning Americans that Trump's actions would have real consequences for them. As relations between the longtime allies, who share the world's longest land border, reached a new low, Trudeau told a news conference that he would impose tariffs on United States goods worth 155 billion Canadian dollars, or $107 billion. The 30 billion Canadian dollars will take effect on Tuesday, the same day as Trump's tariffs, and tariffs on the remaining 125 billion Canadian dollars will take effect in 21 days, Trudeau said. Trudeau's announcement came just hours after Trump ordered 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports and 10% on Chinese goods. Economists say this could slow global growth and reignite inflation. Trump said he would impose a 10% tariff on all energy imports from Canada. The Canadian leader said the tariffs would cover American beer, wine, and bourbon, as well as fruit and juices, including orange juice from Trump's home state of Florida. Canada will also target goods such as clothing, sports equipment, and household appliances. Trudeau said the coming weeks will be difficult for Canadians, but Americans will also be hurt by Trump's actions. Tariffs on Canada will put your jobs at risk, potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities, he told United States citizens at a press conference in Ottawa. Your costs will go up like food at the grocery store and gasoline at the pump, Trudeau added. Trudeau said Canada is considering non-tariff measures on critical minerals, energy supplies, and other partnerships. According to Canadian government data for 2023, the 9,000-kilometer, 5,600-mile United States-Canada border hosts over $2.5 billion a day in trade, particularly in the energy and manufacturing sectors. In 2023, Canada exported about 550 billion Canadian dollars worth of goods and services to the United States, more than 3/4 of its total exports. Energy accounted for 30% and manufacturing contributed about 15% to exports south of the border. Exports to the United States account for about 17.8% of Canada's gross domestic product and more than 2.4 million jobs in Canada. The tariffs affect a Canada dealing with a political crisis and a leadership race within Trudeau's Liberal Party. Faced with low approval ratings, Trudeau has said he will step down after 9 years in office when a new party leader is elected. According to the latest opinion polls, the opposition Conservatives could win the next election by a landslide. In a speech attended by foreign and finance ministers, Trudeau recalled with sadness the years of bilateral relations between the two countries. From the beaches of Normandy to the mountains of the Korean Peninsula, from the fields of Flanders to the streets of Kandahar, we have fought and died with you in your darkest hours, he said. We have built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen. Trudeau encouraged Canadians to buy Canadian products and vacation at home, not in the United States, saying we did not ask for this, but we will not back down. Given the statements, Canadians feel betrayed. Trudeau reminded Americans that Canadian troops fought alongside them in Afghanistan and responded to many disasters in the United States, including the wildfires in California and Hurricane Katrina. As a reminder, Canada and the United States have the world's most extensive and dynamic trade relationship, supporting millions of jobs in both countries. Until now, every day, 2.5 billion United States dollars worth of goods and services crossed the Canada-United States border. This equates to nearly $1 trillion a year. In fact, this significant volume of trade shows how deeply integrated the two economies are, with many goods moving back and forth as part of a joint investment and joint development projects. In addition to trade, Canada and the United States have a significant investment relationship. The United States is the largest investor in Canada, and at the end of 2023, Canada was the largest source of foreign direct investment in the United States, and Canada was the largest foreign supplier of energy to the United States. For nearly 4 decades, trade between Canada and the United States has been governed by a series of free trade agreements, but the United States administration's decision to impose tariffs promises to change relations considerably. So why is the United States imposing tariffs on Canadian goods? The United States claims that the tariffs, announced on February 1, 2025, are intended to force Canada to take stronger measures against illegal immigration and fentanyl smuggling into the United States. Less than 1% of fentanyl and illegal crossings into the United States come from Canada. In direct response to this United States concern, the government of Canada announced an additional investment of $1.3 billion as part of the Canada Border Plan, which strengthens border security, strengthens our immigration system, and further reduces the smuggling of drugs and other harmful substances. To prevent threatened tariffs, the Canadian government is sending drones, canine units, and helicopters to support border surveillance. But recent statements from law enforcement officials about these efforts and assurances from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau seem to have done little to appease the new United States administration.
Manitoba RCMP say 6 people from multiple countries have been arrested after trying to illegally cross.
But given the limited role Canada plays in the cross-border fentanyl trade, it is not clear how much it can really do to alleviate the American opioid crisis. Canadian authorities believe there were nearly 100 organized crime groups involved in fentanyl production in the country last year, a more than 4-fold increase from 2022. Police have identified clandestine fentanyl labs across the country, particularly in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario. In November, officers in British Columbia said they shut down Canada's largest lab hidden on a rural property and seized enough chemicals to produce 96 million doses of fentanyl. The investigation showed links to Mexican cartels. Before the shift to domestic drug production, Canadian police and border officials were struggling with the flow of fentanyl powder to be made into pills, sent into the country through the mail in almost undetectable quantities. Now, the focus is on importing the chemicals used to synthesize fentanyl, known as precursors. So how much fentanyl passes from Canada to the United States? As the opioid epidemic rages in the United States, killing thousands, Congress established a commission in 2020 to explore ways to reduce the flow of drugs into the country. Canada is not known to be a significant source of fentanyl, other synthetic opioids, or precursor chemicals to the United States, a conclusion drawn primarily from seizure data, the Commission found in its February 2022 report. Last year, United States Customs and Border Protection agents seized about 9,600 kilograms of fentanyl at the Mexican border, where the drug is mass-produced by the cartel, and about 19 kilograms of fentanyl at the northern border. Daniel Anson, Director of Intelligence and Investigations at the Canada Border Services Agency, said it does not make financial sense for Canadian criminal groups to focus on exporting fentanyl south. Canadian authorities estimate that there were about 100 organized crime groups involved in fentanyl production in the country last year, a more than 4-fold increase from 2022. Police have identified clandestine fentanyl labs across the country, particularly in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario. Due to the cost and street price, it is very difficult to compete with Mexican fentanyl in the United States. However, Mexico and Canada have begun intensified activities at the United States borders to increase pressure on migrants ahead of Donald Trump's decision to impose punitive tariffs. In the Mexican city of Ciudad Juarez on the United States border, workers this week began filling a 300-meter tunnel used to smuggle migrants into Texas. The 1.8-meter-high tunnel, with electrical cables and ventilation, runs under the Rio Bravo, also known as the Rio Grande, alongside a major highway from central Juarez. United States agents said they discovered the tunnel earlier this month. While Mexico has set up large air-conditioned temporary shelters for deportees, President Claudia Sheinbaum said some non-Mexicans were among the thousands of migrants Mexico took back in Trump's first week. She had earlier suggested that her country could accept non-Mexican migrants as an offer to Trump. Canada has deployed newly leased Black Hawk patrol helicopters, extra dogs, and 60 drones to the United States border in response to Trump's demands to limit the flow of illegal immigrants and fentanyl between the two countries. Canadian Public Safety Minister David McGuinty said their efforts included political access, official access, and operational access, including meetings this week with Trump's border chief, Tom Homan. Officials in Mexico City and Ottawa have been mobilized to take action after Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on their exports from February 1 if they do not reduce immigration and drug trafficking. Analysts said that if the threatened tariffs were implemented, both economies would fall into recession, disrupting supply chains in industries ranging from automobiles to electronics and raising prices for United States consumers. Trump announced last week that he would impose punitive tariffs on Colombia after the country refused to accept 2 military planes carrying deportees, but lifted them after Bogotá quickly backtracked. He declared a national emergency on the United States-Mexico border, sent 1,500 additional troops, and canceled legal entry routes, including an application for asylum applications created by his predecessor, Joe Biden. These measures have left thousands of migrants stranded in Mexican border towns, including Argenis, a 26-year-old Venezuelan hoping to reunite with his brother in Texas. Trump has made the United States southern border the centerpiece of all three of his presidential campaigns, and last year criticized record levels of illegal immigration under Biden. Sheinbaum said on Monday that immigration officials from both countries held virtual meetings and reached an agreement, but gave no further details. Mexico took back about 4,000 migrants in Trump's first week, according to official data. Last year, it took back about 3,700 migrants a week. Mexico has been stepping up immigration enforcement at the request of the United States for more than a decade. In the past year, it has stepped up checks and detentions across the country and focused on busing foreign migrants southward. Mexico is also under pressure from drug cartels supplying the United States with substances including the deadly opioid fentanyl. This trade is difficult to disrupt, with the total number of homicides and disappearances in the country near record highs. Since October, more than 10,000 people have been detained for high-impact crimes such as murder and violent robbery, and more than 90 tons of drugs have been seized. Security Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch said on Tuesday, "The situation on Canada's border with the United States is different from Mexico's. According to United States Customs and Border Protection, United States authorities have detected about 100,000 people a month irregularly crossing from Mexico since June last year. But on the northern border with Canada, the figure was about 15,000 a month. Canada has said that only about 1% of the fentanyl entering the United States is transported across the border. But that has not stopped Trump from threatening it along with Mexico. In recent months, both Mexico and Canada have announced major drug busts. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, who will travel to Washington on Wednesday to meet with Foreign Minister Marco Rubio, said she would also meet with her Mexican, United Kingdom, and European Union counterparts this week. In other news, the European Union gave Donald Trump a 3-word warning on Greenland. Brussels is doing everything it can to confront Washington over the precious North Atlantic territory. The European Union is ready to defend Greenland from the United States, despite Donald Trump's belief that the United States will get it. The United States president said it would be a very hostile act, because it is for the protection of the free world, for Denmark to stand in the way of Washington's efforts for this strategically important territory. But European Union Defense and Space Commissioner Andreas Kubilius said, "We are ready to defend our member state Denmark." Meanwhile, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said that if Denmark asks for solidarity from European Union member states, France will stand by it. In addition to Germany, Denmark has also spoken out. Borders cannot be changed by force, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said on Tuesday after a meeting with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Without specifically naming Mr. Trump, Mr. Scholz, who is expected to leave office after the German elections in February, said, "The inviolability of borders is a fundamental principle of international law. This principle should apply to everyone," he added. Mr. Frederiksen said it was Europe's responsibility to determine the future of our continent. After a heated phone call between the 47th president and the Danish leader before his inauguration, Trump doubled down on his desire to annex Greenland to the United States. Trump said last weekend that, "I think we're going to do it. I do not really know what Denmark's claim to it is, but it would be very hostile if they do not allow it for the protection of the free world." He has not ruled out the use of military force to secure the region for the United States before. So what do you think about this issue? We would appreciate it if you indicate in the comments. Thank you for watching us. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like to support us.